My name is Lawrence Libberton. It's a name that's been printed in court documents and newspapers for a crime that happened back in 1981. A crime that put me on death row. It all started in a trailer in Phoenix, a place that felt like the end of the world. I was 20 years old at the time, living with my friend, Stephen James. Our place was a mobile home, a cramped space where bad ideas festered. On November 17th, 1981, our friend 14-year-old Marty Norton came back with a man named Juan Maya. Marty said Juan had made a homosexual advance toward him and wanted us to get rid of him. Something in the trailer snapped. Stephen kicked Juan in the crotch. When Juan ran, we chased him down and dragged him back inside. His nose and mouth were already bleeding. That's when the real beating started. The three of us, me, Stephen, and Marty, took turns hitting him in the face. He was terrified, pleading with us to just take his car and his credit cards and let him go. We took more than his car. I forced him to sign over the title to me. I put on his belt, the one with his name engraved on the back, and said, "Now that I own Juan Maya's car, I might as well be Juan Maya." That's when Stephen said the words that set everything in stone. "The only thing we can do is kill him." I agreed. We decided to hide his body in an old mine shaft on Stephen's parents' property out in Salome. I was the one who held the gun on him during the 2-hour drive, threatening to shoot him if he made a sound when a police officer pulled us over for speeding. We got him to the shaft just before daybreak. Stephen ordered him to step up to the edge. Juan begged us not to kill him, but it all fell on deaf ears. Stephen fired twice, but the gun just sparked. Juan, fighting for his life, charged at Stephen and grabbed the gun. That's when I picked up a 5-pound rock and started beating Juan on the back of his head and shoulders with it. He was still struggling, so Marty handed me a board, and I hit him with that too, until he let go of the gun. Stephen tried to fire again. More sparks. The gun was clogged with debris, so I took the gun from Stephen and fired it at Juan's head myself. Again, it just sparked. He was still alive, making these awful gurgling sounds. So all three of us picked up large rocks and slammed them down on the back of his head until he fell unconscious. We dragged him to the mine shaft and threw his body in. The aftermath was a blur of stupid mistakes. We used his credit cards, and that's how they caught us. Marty took a deal and testified against us. At my trial in 1982, I was convicted of first-degree murder, kidnapping, robbery, and theft. The judge sentenced me to death. My appeals argued about legal technicalities, but the facts of what I did never changed. Stephen James also got the death penalty, though his sentence was later overturned due to ineffective lawyers who failed to present his troubled childhood and mental state as mitigation. Marty Norton, the kid, was committed to juvenile detention until he turned 18 and was then released. I live with what we did every day. We killed a man for a car, for a wallet, for his sexuality. For no good reason, we lured him, beat him, and executed him most brutally because, in that moment, we thought we could. The justice system held us accountable, but no sentence can ever give Juan Maya his life back. My name is Deryl Dedmon Jr. I was born on July 25, 1992, and by the summer of 2011, I was just an 18-year-old kid from Brandon, Mississippi, drinking with my friends in the suburbs where mostly white folks lived. The alcohol made me feel powerful, and that night, something ugly inside me took over. I looked at my friends and said the words that would change everything. "Let's go fuck with some N-word." We piled into cars and drove 16 miles west toward Jackson, toward the black part of town we deliberately targeted. The sun wasn't up yet on June 26, 2011, when we pulled into the Metro Inn parking lot. That's where we saw him, James Craig Anderson, a 49-year-old black man just standing by his truck, trying to find his keys. He wasn't bothering anyone. He was an auto plant worker, a member of his community, a man with a family who loved him. We surrounded him. My friends started beating him while I watched. They yelled racial slurs at him and robbed him while he stood there helpless. I could see the fear in his eyes, but in that moment, all I felt was hate. Then I made the decision that would haunt me forever. I got into my green Ford F-250 truck, put my foot on the gas, and deliberately ran over James Craig Anderson. I felt the impact, but I just kept driving. Later, I bragged to my friends. I ran that N-word over. I thought it made me tough. I thought it was something to be proud of. I was so young, so stupid, so filled with hatred that I couldn't see the humanity in another person. The police arrested me on July 6, 2011. There was security camera footage. There were witnesses. There was no denying what I had done. As I sat in jail, something finally broke inside me. The reality of what I'd done. That I'd unalived a man for no reason other than the color of his skin, finally hit me. On March 21st, 2012, I stood in court and pleaded guilty to murder and hate crimes. I was 19 years old by then. I told the judge I was young and dumb, ignorant and full of hatred. I said I'd found religion and wished I could take it all back. But wishing doesn't bring back James Craig Anderson. My words couldn't undo the trauma I caused his family or heal the community I'd violated. Judge Jeff Weil Sr. gave me 2 life sentences to run concurrently under Mississippi's hate crime statute. My friends who participated received sentences ranging from 4 years to 50 years for their roles. I deserve every day of my sentence. I took a good man's life because of pure hatred, and that's something I have to live with for the rest of my life. My name is Brandon McInerney. I was 34 minus 20 years old in February 2008, just an 8th grader at E.O. Green Jr. High School in Oxnard, California. Violence and drugs were the norm in my household. My dad and mom were always having extreme arguments, which sometimes ended with one of them getting shot or choked. I was R-word at 39 minus 30 years old by one of my male cousins, but I didn't tell anyone. I couldn't. My world felt small then, and in that small world, Larry King kept pushing at me. Well, I only found out about his life much later, but he also had his fair share of troubles. He was adopted by an abusive father who later left, and a drug addict mother. Before he transferred to my school, he was bullied a lot, and in November 2007, he was removed from his adoptive home and placed in a group home and treatment center called Casa Pacifica after he accused his adoptive father of physically abuse. He was 35 minus 20 years old, and everyone knew he was different. He wore makeup, dressed in women's clothes, and would sometimes flirt with boys in class, including me. I didn't know how to handle it when he'd call me baby in front of everyone. The teachers saw what was happening but didn't stop it. One day, as part of a schoolyard Valentine's Day game, Larry asked me to be his Valentine in front of all my friends. I felt humiliated, trapped, and angry. That morning of February 12th started like any other school day. We were in the computer lab for the first period, sitting in rows of computers. Larry was there too. Everything felt tense. I'd brought my grandfather's .22 caliber revolver to school in my backpack. I don't even remember making the decision to bring it. I just knew I couldn't take the teasing anymore. At 8:15 a.m., while everyone was working, I stood up, pulled the gun from my backpack, and walked up behind Larry. I fired twice into the back of his head. The sound was louder than I expected. After I shot him, I just put the gun down and walked out of the room. I didn't run. I just walked away from what I'd done. Larry hung on for 2 days in the hospital before his family took him off life support on Valentine's Day. I was arrested just minutes from the school. They charged me as an adult with first-degree murder and a hate crime, even though I was only 34 minus 20 years. My first trial ended with a hung jury in 2011. Some jurors wanted murder, others thought it should be manslaughter. Finally, in November 2011, I pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and voluntary manslaughter. The judge sentenced me to 21 years in prison. I was 17 years old when they sent me to adult prison. I think about Larry often. We were both just kids. He was trying to figure out who he was, and I was too, in my own messed up way. I took his life because I didn't know how to handle my own anger and confusion. 2 families were destroyed that day in that computer lab, and all because I chose violence instead of walking away.